Morning school. For our reflection section today, I thought I'd spend a little bit of time talking about the beautiful game, football, its history, its importance, and why some people insist on calling it soccer. Football is by far the world's most popular sport, both in terms of viewership and participation. The numbers are absolutely staggering. There's an estimated 3.5 billion football fans worldwide. But we shouldn't be surprised. Football has been the people's games ever since its beginning. Football has been around for centuries, but not as we would understand it today. As far back as the 9th century, it was a game played on special occasions, festival days, where neighbouring villages would compete to get a ball to a particular location. It was a wild, rowdy sport with very few rules and sometimes hundreds of participants. King Henry IV even passed a law forbidding football in the early 15th century, but its popularity was immense. And football continued in this kind of mass participation format for centuries, and it spread across Europe with specific versions evolving around the continent. A key moment in the development of football, though, was its presence in English public schools in the early 19th century. Reformers of education at the time believed that exercise was a crucial part of education and therefore encouraged students to play various sports. And so football, which had long been a disorganised game with hundreds of people involved, became more structured so boys could play in teams. Each school developed their own set of rules. There was a Harrow football, there was a Winchester and an Eton football, and of course rugby school had its own version which allowed you to use hands, becoming therefore rugby football. Over time, these different forms of football spread. The changing socio-economic conditions of 19th century Britain meant that workers for the first time were being given more free time, and so as part of that free time they played sports, and that obviously included football. Consequently, more and more football clubs started appearing. At first they were associated with institutions such as schools, hospitals, universities, the military such as the Woolwich Arsenal, or workplaces. Cambridge University AFC in 1856, you can see in the top left of this picture. And soon independent clubs started being found across the country, not connected with an institution but purely based on a city or region, such as in the bottom right here you'll see Sheffield FC, founded in 1857 and the oldest football club still in existence in the world. The issue is that many of these different clubs were playing slightly different rules and versions of football, and so a governing body was needed. And so in 1863 the Football Association was founded, the first in the world. And on the 26th of October that year at the Freemasons Tavern in London, club and school representatives held a meeting where they agreed to establish a single unified set of rules for the game. And this codified version of football became known as association football, referring to the FA, which remains the sport's official name. And it is from that association football that soccer came, taking the sock from the middle of association. Soon football started spreading around the world, largely because of British immigrants and workers. For example, here we see a newspaper report about English rail workers who first played football in Argentina, passing it on to the locals and setting up their own club. The game caught on everywhere, and soon football associations were formed in almost every country, such as in Chile in 1895, Denmark in 1889, Mexico in 1907. And so a global governing body was needed. The Fédération Internationale de Football Association, or FIFA, was founded in 1904. Over the years, of course, the rules had to evolve and change. In 1866, a crossbar was added to the goal. Goalkeepers were introduced in 1871, referees in 1881, penalties in 1891, substitutes didn't come in until 1958, red and yellow cards in 1970, and the goalkeeper picking up a back pass was only outlawed in 1992. By the 1920s, with most countries now having domestic leagues and national teams, a Frenchman called Jules Rimet proposed something called the World Cup. 13 teams travelled to Uruguay in 1930 to take part, where the home nation won at the Estadio Centenario. The game grew and grew. This is a picture of the 1950 World Cup final when Brazil lost at home to Uruguay. There was a crowd of nearly 200,000 people watching that game. The advent of colour TV seemed to add something to football around the world. These two pictures are taken 4 years apart. On the left, the 1966 World Cup final. On the right, this is 1970 World Cup. Brazil in their legendary yellow and blue kit. And this, I think for many people, became the high point of football, the beautiful game. And that, of course, brings us to today, where football has changed and evolved dramatically. It has now become an economic and cultural superpower. Its stars are global icons. It is ubiquitous on television and social media. It is awash with money. And I wonder whether the founding fathers of the FA would look at it and approve. Would they recognise the game that we see today? And would they still feel it is the beautiful game? Thank you, school.